Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Aronson, on February 28th, the Colombian Navy seized a Chinese freighter en route to Havana, and the vessel's cargo, around 100 tons of powder, 2.6 million detonators, 99 projectiles, and around 3,000 cannon shells. The weapons and the war material were hidden in the hull of a ship under 28,451 tons of cereal. Colombia's defense minister had said his military had confiscated and destroyed the war material from the FARC. So the Chinese ship was captured by the Colombian Navy, and it was scheduled to make stops in the Colombian ports of Cartagena and Barranquilla. So, Mr. Aronson, in your trips to Cuba, did you ask the Cuban authorities if the large weapons shipment bought by Havana was intended for the FARC? Did you ask the Cuban authorities the reason for hiding the shipment under tons of grain?
Congresswoman, it's a very important question, but let me make it clear. I don't engage the Cuban authorities on any bilateral issue. I really have only talked to them once when I was down there about the progress of the peace talks. So that wouldn't have been an issue that I would normally be involved in, but I think Lee has a little...
If I could interrupt, but when you talk about peace talks and you have a vessel's cargo filled with war material, and then you have these peace talks that are going on in Cuba, and it's given as a justification for lifting all kinds of, trying to lift all kinds of sanctions, and calls into question what these peace talks are all about. If the peace is about the FARC, and the FARC, according to the Colombian defense minister, he says it's for the FARC, and the FARC is talking in Cuba with Colombians about peace. What are they doing with 100 tons of powder, 2.6 million detonators? I mean, is that outside of your scope? It's about peace talks with a group that is transferring war material.
Yeah, what I was trying to say, Congresswoman, maybe I didn't speak clearly enough, is that I don't engage the Cuban government or Cuban officials on bilateral issues or issues that are not directly on the table of the negotiations. That issue hasn't been on the table.
Okay.
That's all I was saying. But
okay, let me just continue. Okay. I realize that my time is limited.
Sure.
So I remain very skeptical about these talks due to so many questions that remain about justice for victims, human rights, disarmament, impunity. And last month, along with my colleagues, Mario Diaz-Balart and Carlos Curbelo, we wrote a letter to Attorney General Lynch expressing our concern that Simón Trinidad may be permitted to attend the talks in Cuba. Trinidad was the only person held responsible for the hostage-taking of 3 Americans. He was convicted of that crime in U.S. courts, sentenced to 60 years. It's not the first time the Obama administration releases criminals who have been targeted or even killed, who have targeted or even killed U.S. citizens. Gerardo Hernandez, one of the Cuban 5, was released by Obama. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder of 3 Americans and 1 U.S. resident. I fear that the Obama administration may offer up FARC leader Simón Trinidad in return for nothing in these talks. You recently stated that Trinidad has not been discussed at all with the FARC. So my first question is, has the FARC requested to anyone, do you know of anyone they have requested for the U.S. to allow Simón Trinidad to attend the talks in Cuba?
Yeah, I think, just to correct the record, I think you're referring to a Washington Post article that said that, but it wasn't exactly accurate, so I don't want it to be taken as my words because they weren't my words. But I've never seen any request from the FARC or the government of Colombia that Mr. Trinidad be released, and I have made it clear that that's not a subject I'd be prepared to talk to the FARC about. It's not on the table.
So, as far as you know, no one has discussed Trinidad with the FARC, which I think is one of their top priorities. Have you discussed Trinidad's fate indirectly with the FARC or through Colombians or other
Yeah,
interlocutors?
I meant to finish the point. Early in my visits to the negotiating process, the FARC raised the question about whether or not Trinidad could join the talks in some fashion, Skype or something like that. And neither the government of Colombia, and it's really their decision if they wanted to propose that, but they have not proposed that, and I've not suggested that. And
Thank you. And I just have a few seconds left.
Okay.
Has the FARC asked the United States to remove the FARC from the foreign terrorist organization list if a deal is signed? Is the U.S. considering removing FARC from the terrorist list?
They have not asked for that, but I would not be surprised if they had some hope for that, but that isn't a subject they've asked yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.